What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM. I'm your host, Chris Raybon of the Action Network, and today we've got our NFL player projections for the divisional round of the NFL playoffs for the 2023, now 2024 season. On today's show, we're going to run through our top five at each skill position, discuss players we're especially high and low on, and we'll throw out a player prop for each position. Joining me, as always, the number one top dog fantasy ranker in the game, the odds maker, Sean Kerner. Sean, congrats again. How you feeling, man?
That's what's up. Yeah, thanks. And we had a amazing wild card weekend. It was fun to hang out with you all weekend. Win a ton of bets. I feel like everybody at Action Network just had a massive weekend. It was fun, getting to meet some of our listeners, some of our readers. So overall, just an epic weekend.
Yeah, shout out to everyone who came out to Hoboken on Saturday and or Sunday. You guys and gals were really amazing, and really enjoyed meeting everybody. I mean, just the stories some of y'all told me. I mean, I think it was Mike. It was like, we helped him pay for his wedding. Just some really gratifying stories. So really, really enjoyed meeting everybody. Shout out to everybody who came out, and we'll keep you guys posted on when we're going to do our next event. And man, Action, all of us, I mean, I don't know if it was synergy or what, but yeah, it seemed like everybody had just a ridiculous week in a positive way. So let's keep it going though. Divisional round. We only got 7 games left in the NFL season, so we can dig as deep as we want to for this one. We'll go through the pod the same way though, same format. We'll start at quarterback and go from there. So I know there are only 8 on the slate, but still I think it's interesting, maybe more interesting. Let's hear your top 5.
Yeah, so this is almost our full QB ranks at this point.
Yeah, right.
But I got Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Brock Purdy, number 3, Patrick Mahomes, and Jared Goff.
I got Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Purdy, Mahomes, Goff. So yeah, just the only difference is flip-flop with Allen, Jackson. The rushing upside for Allen, I really love, but I don't think there's really much. I think I got like a half a point separating those two guys. So
right.
Don't mind your Lamar number 1, especially going against that pass funnel Texan defense. But who are you high on?
I'm high on the guy that just missed probably both our top 5, but it's Jordan Love. He's my QB 6, and it would not shock me if he ends up inside the top 5 again this week. Last week, he just had another impressive performance. Dropped 272 yards, 3 touchdowns against the Cowboys. Sent them packing. I mean, it was just a truly impressive performance. He could have had, way more passing yards, maybe more touchdowns if Dallas had been able to keep it close. I mean, this was a blowout right off the bat. There was also that pick 6. So, he could have had an even bigger performance. So, I was high on Jordan Love as soon as I saw him in the preseason, but just the way he's been playing lately, I never saw this coming. He's truly looking like one of the better young quarterbacks in the game. So, this is a matchup where it's a difficult one, against the Niners, but could mean that the Packers are just going to lean on Love even more. And the crazy part is the Packers heading into the season had one of the least experienced pass catching groups in the league. I mean, Christian Watson had the most experience as a second-year player, but they've also been banged up. But right now, his pass catchers are essentially at 100% health right now, so could be even better going forward. So Jordan Love this week at San Francisco.
Yeah, I think it'll probably be a different game script. San Francisco has had the luxury of, resting starters in week 18, getting the bye. So I'm sure they'll be more prepared than Dallas was.
Right.
So I think, you mentioned it, only 21 pass attempts, 272 yards. Jordan Love, since November, 8 yards an attempt. That's elite. But this is going to be a tougher matchup. I do think the way he gets there this week is probably not quite as efficient as he's been over these past 2 months, but this San Francisco offense, I think they can roll and kind of put the pressure on Green Bay to score. Probably will get Green Bay in a trailing game script. That didn't happen against Dallas.
Yeah.
What was it, 27-0 before we blinked? So you could get, like what's the ceiling? Like same thing as Dak, right? Something like 400 yards is probably the ceiling if Green Bay gets behind in this one. So it could be a little uglier efficiency wise, but yeah, I think the volume will be there, and he's got guys are healthy for him. So and he's playing really, really well. So yeah, I like that. I am high on Purdy. Really think he's a guy who continues to get overlooked. Allen and Jackson are obviously the sexy names, and they give you that rushing upside. But we know Patrick Mahomes hasn't been quite right going on the road to Buffalo, first ever playoff game on the road. So I like Brock Purdy. He's my QB3, kind of in a tier of his own almost. And I think he has a massive, massive upside. He's one of the, rarely am I over on, relative to the books on passing yardage. And that doesn't mean you bet the prop, passing yardage, a 7-yard edge or whatever is not really a big edge because, think about 7 into like 270 is not a lot. But I have Purdy around 275 yards, about 7 to 10 yards higher than the books at most spots as we record on Thursday. And then this Green Bay defense, I know they played well, and Dak made some mistakes, but Green Bay 26th in pass defense DVOA. And again, Kyle Shanahan and this offense, they've had rest, they've had the luxury of being able to prepare. And even though they didn't know who their opponent was going to be, Green Bay got up so quick against Dallas that I think Shanahan said they started preparing for Green Bay like in the middle of the second quarter. So
Nice.
they've had the luxury of kind of figuring out how they want to attack this defense. Joe Barry's still not a very well liked guy in Green Bay for good reason. So I think this San Francisco offense is going to cook through the air, on the ground, and I think Purdy is going to be a big part of that, averaging almost 9 yards an attempt. And now facing a bad defense, got all those guys healthy. Debo, Ayuk, Jennings, Kittle, McLeod is even back. We'll see if we get a half a yard over under prop for him. But I just really love Purdy in this matchup going up against a Green Bay defense that I think, maybe recency bias. People might, they had the couple picks on Dak, the pick 6. Maybe people will forget just how bad this defense has been. I mean, before that Dallas game, Green Bay had been pretty much bottom 3, over the second half of the season. So as good as Jordan Love had been, that Green Bay defense had been giving a lot back. That's why Green Bay had to kind of claw its way into the playoffs. So love me some Purdy this week. All right, who you low on?
Well, I hate to say it, but CJ Stroud, just because, he's my QB8 and there's only 8 quarterbacks on this slate. And this isn't really a knock against him at all. This is how the slate's shaping up. We already have a handful of elite quarterbacks since this is the divisional round of the playoffs. And Stroud has arguably the toughest matchup of the week against Ravens defense that's had plenty of time to rest up, having the week 1 bye. They rank first in DVOA against the pass. They've also allowed the second fewest fantasy points per game to opposing quarterbacks, despite facing the second most pass attempts per game. Since they're usually up, I think the Ravens have only trailed like 60 snaps all year. So, I mean, teams can, they're going to get volume against them. They're just not going to be efficient. So, plus, Stroud's been less efficient on the road against man coverage and against, top 10 defenses, which isn't too surprising. Everybody is. So all of those factors are in play here. Granted, Stroud is one of the better up-and-coming quarterbacks in the game, so he might be able to overcome all of this. I wouldn't be shocked. I think he's probably still worth some flyers in DFS. But just having said that, we definitely have to lower his median this week. And unfortunately, that puts him QB8. Surprising to see him below Baker Mayfield, but Baker played so well last week. He had a couple of drops where his pass catchers let him down. So I have Baker slightly ahead of him, but It's weird to say that Stroud's my lowest ranked quarterback, but that's just unfortunately how this slate has shaped up.
Yeah, I'm not even gonna try to pick a different guy because it's Stroud for me as well. He's my QB8, but I think you said you hit on it. He's still worth flyers in DFS because remember, Baltimore is a juggernaut. They're a great team, and Houston's also a pass funnel. And Baltimore tends to be run heavy, but they might come out a little more aggressive in this one. Beckham and Flowers and all those guys. Andrews even might be back, so they've had a chance to rest guys, and it'll be a pretty zone heavy look from Houston. So you could get a situation too, kind of like with Love. It might not be as efficient as usual, but Houston with Stroud also really hasn't been trailing much outside of that lately. I mean, outside of that Jet game where it was just a lost cause anyway. So we haven't really seen like Stroud getting behind by multiple scores a lot lately. Early in the year we did, but since he kind of took off, we haven't seen much of that either. So you could get some volume, you could get a lot of yardage here, and then you're just hoping that the talent takes over. So there are 8 quarterbacks on the slate. Somebody's got to be ranked QB8. So I totally agree. I have him QB8 as well, but don't think he's a fade in DFS or anything like that. But I will say, he, usually you're looking at Stroud throwing for, upwards of 280 yards, maybe, getting close to 300. I have him, in the 230s for this matchup. Yeah. So that's just a median. That doesn't mean he can't throw for 400, but his median and his floor obviously are the lowest it's been, I believe, all year since maybe the first couple of weeks in terms of my projections, at least. Okay, we both went 1-1 last week on props. So our worst performances of the week, because everything else is pretty good. Shout out to Romeo Dobbs, but it's me. I gotta throw out a prop here for quarterbacks. Let's see. Let's go with I'm going to go with a guy that I seem to be higher than the market on and higher than you on, and I can't really find a way to lower him. So I'm just going to throw out a line, and it's actually the line I have projected, and I'm just going to see, which way he'll go. So Jared Goff, been playing well himself, indoors against the Tampa Bay defense that has been a little shaky. I have him at a median of 277.5 passing yards over under.
That's a good line. I noticed his prop has actually gone up above that. I was closer to the low 270s.
Yep.
So I will take the under here, but that is shaping up to be where the market has stabilized at least. But I have him like right around like 271, 271.5, like that range.
Yeah, my average is like 281. My median's like 270, like what I gave you, 277.5. But yeah, I think earlier in the week, the line was a little bit lower. But yeah, I noticed it's starting to come up. But yeah, I mean, it's this Detroit team is fast paced, runs a lot of plays, pretty efficient, going against a defense that hasn't, non-prohibitive, and an offense, that Detroit defense isn't great. So.
Right.
And you could see a lot, and it's also a pass funnel defense. So I think that kind of helps the Lions as well. And the Bucs are one of those teams that, they can be solid on offense, but they don't necessarily possess the ball a ton because they don't have a great running game. So I think Detroit's plays are kind of maximized in my model. And so a lot of things kind of working in the favor of Goff here. So interesting to see that one.
And they'll have a better plan for the blitz than the Eagles did.
Yeah, you would hope, right? Oh my goodness. Goff he's actually not great against the blitz. But that could actually help his yardage if they don't do as well as we expect early, because Goff is the number one ranked graded quarterback in PFF with no blitz. Drops to 22nd when blitz. So this could be an interesting one here. But yeah, I'm a little bit high on Goff. So interesting. I'm high on the Bucks, which is interesting, but I'm also high on Goff. So maybe I need to take the over in this
Those are
game.
correlated. Yeah, it sounds like
yeah,
it. But those are pretty correlated. If you think the Bucks are going to keep up, Goff's going to keep throwing. So that's why you lean towards his over here.
Yeah, and a lot, coaches respect that Tampa Bay front in terms of running the ball. So maybe their pass rate is a little higher too. But and now a quick word from our sponsor, HelloFresh. With HelloFresh, you get farm fresh, pre-portioned ingredients and seasonal recipes delivered right to your door. Are you too sad from betting wildcard weekend underdogs to leave your house? No problem. With HelloFresh, you skip trips to the grocery store, and unlike betting unders, they make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. That's why they are America's #1 meal kit. This time of year, everyone's looking to revamp their eating habits, so look to HelloFresh's wholesome options each week, like their protein smart recipes. People say a lot of things, but we know 2 things are always true. First, you can't rely on the passing game on windy conditions. Second, breakfast is the most important meal of the day, and HelloFresh agrees with both of those. In fact, they're giving all subscribers free breakfast for life. That means you'll enjoy a totally free breakfast item with every single HelloFresh delivery. So go to HelloFresh.com/ActionPodFree and use code ActionPodFree for free breakfast for life. 1 breakfast item per box while subscription is active. That's free breakfast for life at HelloFresh.com/ActionPodFree with code ActionPodFree, ActionPodFree. HelloFresh, America's #1 meal kit. All right, running back. Who you got in the top 5?
It's been a few weeks, but welcome back to the #1 slot, Christian McCaffrey. Then it opens up a bit. I have Isaiah Pacheco, #2, then Rachaad White, Jahmyr Gibbs, and James Cook to round out my top 5.
I got CMC. I got Aaron Jones, #2, actually. Nice. Rachaad White, Pacheco, and then Gibbs. So that's interesting. So where do you have Jones? Just curious.
6. He's right there.
Okay. Yeah, he's tough to project. It's because, he's been getting so many carries, and Dylan hasn't really been active. But at this point, I don't think Dylan's going to get much. It's just how many passing snaps does Jones play? Because it's kind of skewed because he's been playing in all these positive game script games where, as the early down, he usually, if he's going to come out these days, he usually comes out on 3rd down. Whereas, in the past, he was more of a passing down back. So it's a little tough to project his passing down usage. So I might that ranking might change, but it's kind of a little shaky after CMC, I must say. Like there's no where I love. Right, exactly.
Yeah, there's 6 backs you could make a case to be the RB2.
Yeah, I think Jones, White, Pacheco, Gibbs, or Cook probably. All those guys, depending on how things go. Who are you high on?
Yeah, so I just said there's 6 to maybe 8 running backs you could argue should be the RB2. Mine currently is Isaiah Pacheco, so I guess I'm high on him. And as predicted last week, the Chiefs leaned on him heavily, ran the ball 24 times for 89 yards and a touchdown. He only got 1 pass for -1 yard, I believe. But that had more to do with just the Chiefs being up all game. The Dolphins didn't really put up a fight here, so they didn't really have to throw much, lean on dump offs to Pacheco like I thought they would. So you could see him go back to 3 to 4 catches in the passing game here with Jerick McKinnon, still out. And the Bills defense, we saw it unfold. They suffered a ton of injuries, specifically to the linebackers. They're already without Matt Milano, who's on IR, but Tyrell Dodson missed last game with the shoulder injury. Terrell Bernard had to leave on the cart with the ankle injury. So they might be really thin at linebacker. Even backup Balin Spector had to leave the game with a back injury. So we'll have to see who's even able to suit up, but it could be an even better matchup for Pacheco. So if he gets in the second level, might be more likely to break a big run, if they have to use a ton of backups at linebacker. As of now, I have Pacheco. He's barely my RB2, but as of now, he is my RB2 to open the week.
Yeah, and I'll actually talk more about him with the guy I'm low on, but I'm going to stay in the same game for who I'm high on, and that's James Cook of the Bills going up against Kansas City. 27th in run defense DVOA are the Chiefs, 21st in DVOA on passes to running backs, and Cook, since Joe Brady took over for Ken Dorsey at offensive coordinator, averaging 19.9 touches, 102 scrimmage yards, and a half a touchdown per game over his last 8 games. He's been a little bit quieter lately, but I think that's mostly, just noise. You're not going to be able to put up, 100 plus yards every single game, but I think he has a really good shot. He's still one of the most efficient running backs in the league. And the Bills have just been a lot more run heavy too. So even though Cook is still getting about 70% or so of the backfield touches on average, it's still a lot of. It ends up being a lot of touches because the Bills have gotten so much more run heavy since Brady took over. And this is a game, in the cold in Buffalo. You're a home favorite. We always like that for running backs going up against the Chiefs, who his weakness is on the ground. So love Cook to have another big one. Perhaps he busts in an explosive or something like that. And the Chiefs really, their pass defense is really strong. They have a lot of good cornerbacks. They can defend the pass. So I think you might see some dump offs to Cook as well. I know Josh Allen doesn't do that a ton, but you might see some of that. You might see some design screens in this game. A lot of different things. But I think Cook has to be, outside of Josh Allen, obviously, the centerpiece of this Bills offense, because Stephon Diggs in this current offense is just not – he's not the dominant force that he was in years past. And in this kind of game, postseason, cold weather game, I think it sets up well for Cook. So love me some Cook going up against the Chiefs.
Yeah, and his 70% of the running back rush attempt share, it's kind of misleading because 7 of Ty Johnson's 8 carries came on the final drive when they, were clearly going to win. They were just trying to salt the game away. He got 7 straight rush attempts. So if the game was closer, James Cook would have just seen a ton of carries. So they're clearly leaning on him even more now that they're in must-win games in the playoffs.
Yeah, if there's one thing about last weekend I noticed is just like some teams are just mystifying what they're doing with these running back carries. Like I remember I had Jaylen Warren under 9.5 and 8.5, and like the Steelers are giving draw plays to him down 2 scores to open a drive. It's like, what are y'all doing? So hopefully, the Bills just feed Cook and don't do any stupidness. You don't really need to be giving Ty Johnson carries, to be honest. They've figured out that they don't need to give Murray carries, so I give him credit.
Thank God. I had that under 9.5 rushing yards, and I think it was the second drive. He was in there on the opening snap, and granted, It was a play action pass. He didn't see a single carry, but we're seeing all these weird trends occur in the playoffs, and it's mind boggling.
Yeah, so that is not necessarily related to running backs in particular, but something I did notice is I do think in these playoff games, teams do make a little bit more of an effort to break tendency. The Cowboys, for example, they're man heavy and pass heavy. They're man heavy on defense and pass heavy on offense. They came out and tried to run, and they played a lot of zone, and they came out playing zone. And then, you saw like Latavius Murray in the game, who's usually they're usually going to hand it off to him, and they end up play actioning. So a lot of different teams, I think, are aware of the tendencies, and sometimes I think they try to get too cute trying to break these tendencies, but that is something to kind of pay attention to as we're looking at all these projections. But who are you low on at running back?
Devin Singletary. I believe I said I was high on him last week. This week I'm low on. He's my RB8. He's been banking on just massive volume over the last few weeks, just because he's become more of a true workhorse back. It's been crazy to see just how little snaps Damian Pierce is getting now. I mean, you called that on his under 9.5 rushing yards. It's insane. That's what his prop is now, and the clear values on the under. But even the past
Wait,
weeks.
it's up. It's up. The Pierce prop is up.
No, I'm saying last week. I don't think they're going to
Oh,
offer anything
yeah.
right now.
I was like, I went straight to my sports book. I was so ready to hammer that
I'll
again.
let you know on the side if that happens. I won't be breaking news right now, but even the past 2 weeks, even that massive volume really wasn't enough for Singletary. He only saw 65 and 70 total yards, but he was able to score a touchdown in each of those games. But that's just going to be tougher to get on the board that way against the Ravens. The Texans have the lowest team total by far the weekend, right around 17, 18 points, which is obviously very, very low for the Texans. So just given, Singletary's efficiency being lower, especially with the tougher matchup, and the much, much lower odds of actually scoring a touchdown here, I'm very low on Singletary here. So he's my lowest rank starting running back this week at RB8.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I actually gave out as one of my top picks, one of my 6-pack picks on this week's Action Network pod is Singletary under 16.5 receiving yards. So I'm right there with you. He plays, a lot. He plays almost every snap on early downs. He will come out on third downs and sometimes in the hurry up as well for Ogunbowale. And like I said, we haven't really seen too much of Houston trailing big, especially big, since Singletary became the lead back. There's been a couple games in there, but more for the most part, especially with CJ Stroud, the games have been close or the Texans have been winning. So I think Singletary actually might see a lower percentage of pass snaps than he has because there could be more third downs, more hurry up and things like that, which he might not necessarily be in on. And the Ravens have really good linebackers, and you have Roquan Smith and Patrick Queen, so it's not easy to get to just shake those guys. So yeah, I think it'll be a tough game for Singletary all around. But I am already on his receiving under. I am low on Clyde Edwards-Helaire at Buffalo, and I kind of talked about how there would be a guy that kind of relates to your being high in Pacheco, and I think another reason to like Pacheco is he might get almost every snap in this game because CEH, he might look tempting, for DFS or something like that. 8 touches last week, and McKinnon's still out. LaMichael Pirine is not seeing the field as the number 3 back, so it is a kind of a tempting spot here. But eight of those 8 touches, 4 of those 8 touches, 4 of his 7 carries were the last 4 carries of the game for the Chiefs when they were trying to milk the clock, and he fumbled on the last one, which almost made you have a heart attack with your Tua under completion.
Tell me about it.
So, there's a chance that in this game, it's just Pacheco. I mean, we've seen Pacheco get every backfield carry before, 2 games ago. Now, CEH was out for that game. I think Pirine was the RB2, but still, it's happened before. And, Edwards-Helaire has been playing more, kind of the McKinnon role, light, not as quite as many pass snaps as McKinnon, but he has been playing some pass snaps. But like you said, I think, if Kansas City is in a closer game, they're going to need more of their best player in the backfield, and that is Pacheco. So I could see Pacheco getting, 85, 90% of the snaps in this one. I could see CEH not getting a touch or only getting 1 or 2. So I am not chasing those 8 touches from last week. All right, what are you doing for the prop?
All right, so one of my rare losses over the weekend was Jahmyr Gibbs over 50.5 rushing yards. It was looking really good early on, but fizzled out. So I'm going to need you to help sharpen my Jahmyr Gibbs rushing prop for me this week. But I haven't even seen the market for this, so I don't know where it's at right now. So I'm just going to give out where I'm projecting him. I have him at 52.5 rushing yards against the Bucs here. Are you over or under that?
Ooh, that is a great line. I am right at that.
Okay.
Like literally right at that. I think Yeah, my median would be my median would be 52,
Okay.
not 53. So that's a great line. I'm
Damn.
gonna go under for what it's worth. The market actually is under both of us. The market is
Oh no, I
between
just saw.
44 and 47 and a half. So I'm just gonna go, go wisdom of the crowds here. It will probably move in our direction.
Yeah.
But just curious, what do you have for? I'm gonna do the under, but what do you have for the? What do you have for Gibbs and Montgomery carries? Like, what's the split for you?
So I have Gibbs at 11,
Mhm.
and Montgomery just under 14. So let's call it 13 and a half. But I was a bit surprised on just how much work Montgomery got last week, especially how good Gibbs looked early on. I didn't like some of the play calls they did have for Gibbs. They kind of put him in bad situations. But yeah, like can can you like talk me off just betting Gibbs over 44 and a half right now?
I can't. I think. I mean, he's been over that in more than half his
Yeah,
games. I think that is the side. I don't. I can't see myself going much lower. Again, I'm just. I think this Lion Buck game is going to have a lot of yardage. It's
right.
indoors, probably maybe a few more points than we think. But it is. It had the only thing I'll say is it is one of those projections that probably a little bit more variance than the usual projection because you're dealing with
Yeah,
two backs who are kind of close to 50-50. So in any like last week, as you mentioned, we saw a lot of Montgomery. We just talked about how these teams are trying to make it a more of a point to break tendency.
hmm
So this could be a Gibbs heavy game script. So it's really
true.
tough to kind of uh, project that and definitively say that. But definitely, I think the ceiling is very high. And the floor is fairly high because he's not going to dip under like 40-ish% of the.
Yeah,
It's not probably going to go under 60-40, but yeah, it's really tough. But yeah, I have him at like 11 for 52 as well, and Montgomery
and
just under 14 as well carries for
yeah, the
62.
only yeah the only real problem. My only two losses of the weekend were over bets. My only
Yeah,
real problem is always getting myself to like take an over. I have no problem taking it under. So part of my concern is being on the over here. If anything, maybe I'll take like Gibbs to lead the game in rushing yards at like 5-1 or something like that. That might be the better way to invest in his ceiling than taking the over on his median again. I don't know if I could do it.
yeah. I mean, I would say another guy who I think is a really good DFS play because he is priced up. But again, like this might be a Gibbs week because last week was a Montgomery
Mm-hmm.
week, and I think that's how these teams kind of, especially when you're kind of embarrassment of riches like the Lions,
Yeah,
you can do that. You can feature different guys each and every week next to Amon-Ra. So, but yeah, I'm going under 52 and a half just because. Have it just under. But receiver, top five, who you got?
wow, this is a fun top five. Love this slate at receiver. But I got Amon-Ra St. Brown number one. Then I have Debo, Nico Collins, Brandon Ayuk, and Rashee Rice.
I have Amon-Ra St. Brown number one, Nico number two, Debo number three, Rashee Rice number four, and Mike Evans number five.
Oh, nice. And Ayuk probably number six
Yep,
somewhere
Ayuk's number
right there.
six.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Green Bay is kind of usually zone heavy under Joe Barry, and that's usually signals. I mean, Ayuk kills it against any coverage, but
Yeah.
when the team plays tends towards zone, that tends to be when Debo really goes off. Not quite as great against man coverage. At least that's how it's been over the last couple of years. So that's the only reason I have Ayuk a little for just
Yeah.
outside my top five. But who you high
All right, Rayvon, plug your ears.
on?
I'm high on Romeo Dobbs against the Niners. He's my wide receiver 11. Last week, Dobbs going off was a bit unexpected against Dallas because leading into last week, they did use man coverage at the third highest rate, around 35% of the time. And as you pointed out, Dobbs ranked dead last out of 89 qualified wide receivers in routes run or yards per route run against man coverage. He's top 20 against zone. So in theory, facing a Niners team that uses man coverage just around 20% of the time, the 11th lowest rate, would expect Dobbs to be in a better spot here. Plus, the Packers wide receivers are always tough to project, but even more now with Bo Melton now in the mix and everybody healthy. But I think Dobbs is probably the safest bet to have a 80% plus routes run rate. So I love him here this week. His rostership in DFS will probably be higher after last week, but either way, just based on the matchup and just how well Jordan Love is playing right now, I do think Dobbs is pushing top 10 value here this week.
Yeah, the only thing that could go wrong, I guess, is, or not the only thing, but is if San Francisco says we want to break tendency, right. We're a zone heavy team, and they start manning everybody up, which, that would be knowing like just how everything has gone with this Green Bay receiving core. But yeah, I agree. I have Dobbs projected for the most routes of these Green Bay receivers at 80% on the dot, actually. So I'm right there with you. He's my wide receiver 11 as well. Jaden Reed's my wide receiver 10. So
same.
They're both right there. But I'm just curious, what do you have right now for the routes with I'm guessing you have Dobbs around 80%. But the rest of these guys, they've been kind of up and down, Reed, Wicks, and Watson in particular.
Reed is probably the most tricky because every week I'm showing massive value on his under 4.5 receptions, but I just can't get there because his routes run rate has been so low recently, probably because of the injury. So I have him around 64% here, and I don't feel great about it. And the other thing with Reed, they just stopped giving him design rush attempts. We were projecting him for 3 carries a game for a hot minute there. Now it's under 5, under a half for me. I think I kind of called that when Aaron Jones was out. I thought they might start getting Reed some more design rush attempts because you need some lightning to at least go along with AJ Dillon's thunder. But with Aaron Jones back, maybe they just thought there's no reason to do that, especially with Reed playing through injury. So yeah, right now I have Reed at 64% routes run rate with very little usage in the run game. I think Wicks is probably their number 3 receiver in my opinion, so I have him around 65%. And then Christian Watson, who the hell knows? I have him 45%. And Bo Melton, the mystery that is Bo Melton, I have it 30%.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so I have a little different. I have Dobbs 80%, Reed 65%. So that's kind of the same.
We're in the exact same projection there.
And then, so Wicks and Watson both at 55% because I really don't know.
Okay.
They kind of added up to right around 100 last game, but I think if things are closer, they'll get more snaps, and Melton will probably dip. So I have Wicks and Watson at 55 each, and then Melton at 20. So, just going a little low for him. Yeah.
I'm careful not to move Melton down too much. He's just being used too much. And I love Wicks. Right now, I think Wicks is probably better than Watson. I think Wicks could be a sleeper pick next year. So I could see why you have him 55 each, but I'm just very careful moving Wicks down because I think the Packers love him. I think he's underrated. And with Watson, you just never know if he can make it through a full game. So, yeah, those two are probably the trickiest to project right now for sure, though.
If you have Watson at 45, that means you must have his receiving yardage at 20, median at 23 or something like that, right?
Yeah, and his prop's 30 right now. So
yeah, it's let's see.
If you're listening,
it's 29 and a half. It's 26 and a half at BetMGM, and yeah, it's even, it might be higher than there at some spots, but yeah, I guess it's coming down. So not showing a ton of value, but you definitely are decidedly under.
Yes.
And the market is with you. Wicks, they have Wicks at BetMGM at 35 and a half. So, I'm under both of them, to be honest with you. It's just but it's such a tricky projection. So
yeah, if anything, I would love fading his receiving yards because he gets downfield targets. Mm-hmm. He is an explosive player with the ball in his hands. Maybe his under 2.5 receptions looks like it's around minus 150, minus 155 might be the way to go. But again, we're talking about a very volatile situation, so it's we're not going to be as confident when we're talking about median projection. So I'm not saying I would go there, but as of now, I'd be more willing to invest in Watson's floor than anything right now.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it's only a matter of time. Like he's gonna pop off for like a 75-yard touchdown at some point. So, and if he does that, then everyone else might hit the under. So it's very tricky. Okay. Where are we still doing? Yeah. Okay. I'm high on Chris Godwin at the Lions. Now, this is for a couple of reasons. Number one, the matchup. Detroit has their best cornerback and coverage, in my opinion, inside. Branch. You also have CJ who can do some of that. Sutton could follow Evans. Stuck and I talked about this on the Action Network pod. So Godwin he's been playing in the slot less these days. Could match up the most on Kindle Vildor, who has a 51.7 PFF coverage grade, number 110 out of 128 qualified corners. And Godwin's been pretty productive over his last 6 games, 5.7 catches, 77 yards, and 2 touchdowns in those last 6 games. So like Godwin in this spot, indoors, could be a trailing game script, should be a good matchup, and they're moving him around, so should be able to find some soft spots in the zone, or if they play man, it's probably going to be Vildor more often than not, and Godwin, definitely advantage Godwin in that scenario. So like Chris Godwin, and I know it kind of goes right into who you're low on.
Yeah, so I'm low on Trey Palmer. He's my wide receiver 19. I mentioned I was high on him last week. He was my dart throw. We were all over him in our Action Island parlay. Shout out to Nick Giffen for throwing him out there for his anytime touchdown prop. That parlay hit 32-1. The last play that cashed it was that Trey Palmer touchdown. However, that 56-yard touchdown, I should say, was great play. However, I should say that was his only reception of the game. And the most alarming thing, and I can't wait to hear what your take on this is because I can't figure it out, but he only ran a route on 33% of Baker's dropbacks, which is about half of the percentage that he usually runs. I'm not sure why it fell off that much, but it did come at the expense of David Moore, who had a 42% routes run rate. He had a great game as well. He also had a nice long touchdown. The Bucs also, they used more 2 tight end personnel due to the fact they were up by 1 to 2 plus scores for most of the game. Palmer already had a low usage rate for a player, with a 70% plus routes run rate kind of playing time rate, but he can't afford to also see his playing time take a hit. So I'm much lower on him this week. But any idea why he saw his routes run rate take such a big hit other than just David Moore playing really well there?
No, I think that's really what it is. I mean, I noticed that too during the game. I was talking to our guy Matthew Treby, and he was like, I think Palmer's second half receiving line over under was 6.5, which he obviously beat by 50 yards on that touchdown. But I was saying, it seems like he's kind of getting usurped a little bit by David Moore, and David Moore has been playing well. David Moore has been the better run blocker this year. David Moore has been, the higher graded receiver at PFF this year. So, and David Moore, like you said, more yards, more catches, and just as many touchdowns as Palmer in that game, 2 for 66 and a touchdown himself. So, I thought Moore looked really good in the preseason. Was kind of surprised that he didn't make the final roster, but it's kind of telling that in the first, week of the playoffs, it's David Moore and Palmer essentially splitting snaps. I still have Palmer projected for more, but I got cornered in the market. So I gave out Palmer under 20.5 receiving yards on the Action Network pod as one of my 6-pack picks. And it's down to, it's between 15.5 and 17.5 everywhere. I think 17.5 at BetMGM, but I mean, it lost, and it was, I actually got it at 21.5. So it's lost like 4 to 6 yards, which I think is correct, But
Yeah.
yeah, so RIP to that prop. I can't bet that anymore. But I'm right there with you. For the second position in a row. Singletary I was
Nice.
low on, bet is receiving under. Palmer also same thing. And I think this is one of the best times to bet an under on a guy like this. Is a 56-yard touchdown is going to naturally inflate your average when you're only your median is under 20 yards receiving, or right around 20 yards receiving, and probably get lower than that now because again losing some snaps. So I think this is a great time to sell high on him. Last week we bought him, so I'm low on Palmer as well.
Just keep giving out his under like I did with Dawson Knox. I gave it out like 4 different times, each time a yard lower, which is brutal when you're talking about a prop in the 12.5-yard range. So I think you should just stick with it. You got to be careful though that you don't accidentally piss him off, because one of the reasons Nick did like his touchdown prop is he has scored a touchdown after every single time he's tweeted that he was pissed off heading into the game. So that's like 5 or 6 times. So be careful to not piss him off. Maybe he's pissed off that he saw his playing time chopped in half too. So whatever we do not want to piss off Trey Palmer.
Yeah, I really like not to, because that was one of the first bets. If not, I think it was the first bet I made this week. Actually, nice. That was the one line that was just I saw completely out of whack at 21.5. It's still 17.5 at BetMGM. It's dropping. My median is 16 for him, so don't really show a ton of value at the 17.5. Like if you're just spraying the board and you just want the right side, I think still the under, but the market has kind of caught up to my chagrin. But I'm gonna go low on a guy that I hate doing this because he's just so good, but I mean we just haven't seen enough production lately to justify the DFS price, and I think the props are going to be a little bit high for him as well, and that's Stephon Diggs up against the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs are 5th in DVOA against number 1 wide receivers according to FTN. They are 2nd on defense in fewest schedule adjusted receiving yards per game allowed to number 1 wide receivers, just under 50, which is that's nothing. So that tells you just how good Kansas City's been. Kansas City actually has 3 cornerbacks in the top 31 in PFF coverage grade, and a 4th at number 56 out of 128. So they have the number 4, the number 25, the number 31, and the number 56. So they have corners for days. They can, and the way this Bills offense is, even if Gabe Davis returns, he's not a guy, like he's not a high volume guy. And then it's just, tight ends mostly and back. So you could take out Diggs a little bit, more than I feel like you have been in years past, especially with Buffalo being so much more run heavy under new offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. In the 8 games since Brady took over for Ken Dorsey, Stephon Diggs, 5.1 catches, 46 yards per game with just 1 touchdown in those 8 games. So, that's just not going to cut it. And now you're facing a tough matchup. So, and you're a home favorite. So that also is not ideal because, there was a time earlier in the year when Buffalo was the 11th seed, and Diggs was still putting up numbers. He had some really good games against tough matchups. So it's not out of the question, but his floor, his median, it just keeps creeping down because now we're up to 8 games of him averaging, receiving yardage in the mid 40s. So low on Stephon Diggs. All right, so let's see. What am I going to do for the prop? Let's go with Stephon Diggs because I think he's really tough to project. Just a lot, how run heavy are the Bills going to go? We don't know if Gabe Davis is going to be back, so it's a tough projection. But so it's it's one that I'm kind of the most uncertain about. So let's go with. Let's go with 62.5. receiving yards.
Damn it. That is like literally what I got. You just mentioned Gabe Davis. So I have Gabe playing, running around 65% of dropbacks. So I'm going to use this as the deciding factor. I'm going to see what happens if Gabe Davis is out. Because he hasn't practiced yet, right?
No, he has not.
Okay, so let's see what happens if Gabe Davis is out. Could it could go either way, I think. Yeah, Diggs prop goes up just a tad. I'm going to go with the over. That is a great line. That is exactly where I have it at. But just the potential of Gabe Davis being ruled out and seeming, I guess, at this point more likely leans me to the over. So just I'm a couple yards above you then.
Yeah, it's just been a nightmare projecting him because there's also that span, kind of when Brady took over where Diggs' route participation rate went way down, but his target rate went up like per route. So it was kind of weird. It was just like really tough to project. But over like in those games since Brady took over, 27, 74, 24, 48, 29, 26, 87, 52. So he's been over that number in only 2 of his 8 so far. So it's so tough to project.
I remember reading, I didn't see it, but I guess somebody in the media asked McDermott about Diggs' playing time, and someone from their PR team interrupted him or something. He didn't answer it, but it was like he wasn't allowed to talk about it. So I wonder what was going on there. I noticed that too.
I did not.
I have to invest. I love some juicy things like this. I'm gonna have to dive in a little bit more, but those concerns have been lifted. He's top 90% the past 2 games, but I wonder if there was an injury or something was going on that we weren't privy to, but McDermott didn't answer it, and I guess he was interrupted before he could.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, his season-long numbers still look fine. 160 targets, 107 catches, 1,183 yards. It's not, but it's just there was just a huge downtick around mid-season when they switched coordinators. So, and remember, Diggs had that weird, whatever it was earlier in camp where they thought he had an issue with the offense, and I think did he sit out a couple of days of camp or he no showed or something, and there was news and Josh Allen had I don't know what's been going on with him. But
I don't know, but anytime I have the over on his prop, I do notice he kind of takes himself out of the game a lot. He'll have his mouthpiece fall out. Yeah. He's just I'm going to sit out this play. That's why his routes run rate are always a little bit lower if you watch the game. A lot of times he just kind of takes himself out of the play, which is kind of bizarre. But that's been a common theme for him for a few years now.
Maybe his agent negotiated he only has to play X amount of run blocking snaps or something.
Could be.
Who knows? I don't know. And he's been playing well, but tough matchup. So interested to see where that one lands. This podcast is proudly presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION, ACTION, when signing up to get up to $158 in bonus bets when you bet $5. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or older. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. But let's go to tight end. Who you got in the top 5?
Travis Kelce, George Kittle, Sam Laporta, Dalton Kincaid, and Mark Andrews for now. He's returned to practice, but they're saying that he's not a lock to play this week or anything. But if he does, I have him right around tight end 5.
Actually, if he plays, I'd still have him outside the top 5 because I think he'd be a little more situational. Third downs, passing downs, red zone, things like that. And
sounds like pretty key downs to me.
I mean, no, it is. But Baltimore is a big favorite, so they might not be quite if they were a 10-point underdog, then it'd be a little easier to kind of just project him for a good amount of targets. But it's kind of just up in the air right now. I guess we just have to keep monitoring it. But I got Kelce, Kittle, Laporta, Dalton Schultz, and Dalton Kincaid. Dalton Schultz, another guy that cashed that under with the
God,
dropped that long that
so that must have been the first play of the game. I think it was about 20 air yards, and he probably had room to run after that. And when he dropped it, like half the people in the bar turned and looked at me. It was very uncomfortable, sweating it under at the bar. But then, yeah, when Stroud chucked it deep, I kind of complained that the TV broadcast camera view, you can't tell who they're throwing it to. I had no idea where the ball's going, but I thought since Stroud was chucking it so far down the field, I was safe. And sure enough, Dalton Schultz was the one that was under the ball, caught the touchdown, somehow survived that. Thanks to those back-to-back pick sixes, probably helped me out there. But yeah, that was his only catch of the game, and I survived. The bar looking at me anytime Schultz drew a target. So really happy to win that bet.
At least one of us survived. Like when Romeo Dobbs, I mean, he not only went over, he went over 4 times, like 4 or 5 times over. So
at least he did it early.
Right,
just get out of the way. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the third play of the game, the third pass of the game, and the third play of the game for Houston. Schultz got that.
Yeah, you were coming back from the bathroom, and I had already seen on my dots on my phone what was coming, and I tried to prepare you and protect you from the misery of that. But yeah, it was the right play.
All right, who you hiring at tight end?
All right, so I'm high on Sam Laporta. He's my tight end 3. And to be honest, it was a bit shocking that he was even able to play last week. He hyperextended and had a bone bruise on his knee, had to wear that huge knee brace. But he did manage to run a route on 80% of Goff's dropbacks, so he was probably more healthy than I even thought he would be. He was kind of, he had the modest receiving line of 3 catches, 14 yards, and a touchdown. So he kind of bailed out his fantasy line with the touchdown. But you have to imagine, he's only going to get healthier as the playoffs go on. So while he might not be 100% this upcoming week, he should be a lot closer than he was last week. And I thought he looked okay last week. So I think he's back in the top 3 status. He obviously has a ton of upside, had an amazing rookie season. So I think he's a player that people might be sleeping on because they did see him be a bit hindered last week. But again, I think he's only going to get healthier. So I'm bumping him up this week.
Yeah, I'm surprised the market is as low as it is on Laporta, given that he practiced in full for the last practice of the week last week, and then played his usual allotment of snaps. So
yep.
I'm higher than the market. Again, that doesn't mean I'm betting overs. Like, I'm like 5-ish. Let's see. Yeah, it's 40.5 at BetMGM. I'm at about 45 for his receiving yards. So I'm a little bit over there, but I'm surprised. And it was lower. I think it's gone up a little bit. I think it was in the high mid 30s earlier in the week. So I probably should have hit that. Yeah, but I'm surprised the market was that low. I guess kind of still treating him like he is. Not 100%, which I mean is fair, but Goff has been playing well. His game's indoors, and he didn't, if you don't take any snaps off, that's like you've played in your usual allotment of snaps. I'm not really gonna ding you too much for an injury. I am high on George Kittle. I think this is a good spot for him. I know the temperatures are going to be in the mid 50s. You're probably going to see some rain in this game. I don't think it will affect things too much here. But obviously that is something to monitor with not just Kittle, but every member of the San Francisco and Green Bay passing game. Right now, we are, do expect double-digit mile-per-hour winds and some rain, so could get a little dicey. But Kittle's not a massive downfield target anyway. So if Purdy has to, use the quick game or the short passing game a little more, that actually helps Kittle. Another thing I noticed with Kittle, he has pretty massive home road splits, especially this year. At home, he's averaging just under 5.5 catches for 87 yards with 0.7 touchdowns. On the road, just 3 catches, 46 yards, and 0.1 touchdowns. And in his career, at home, 69 yards. On the road, 59 yards. And at home, 0.44 touchdowns. On the road, 0.32 touchdowns. So he has been one of those guys. And it makes sense because at home, teams play better. They expected to score more touchdowns. Tight ends aren't, doing much out. Like touchdowns are still what tight ends have to rely on to really hit their ceilings. And Green Bay, good matchup for tight ends, 26th in DVOA. against the position, according to FTN last week. And obviously, Dak throws for over 400 yards, so take it with a grain of salt. But Green Bay allowed 11 catches for 100 yards on 15 targets to tight ends with those 3 Jake Ferguson touchdowns. So that's a 25% target market share to tight ends. And Kittle, for the Niners, I mean, probably getting every single tight end target. Charlie Werner, if he gets a target, I mean, that would that would be surprising. So Kittle's in a good spot here. And again, it's Green Bay team, makes sense. They do play more zone than most under Joe Barry, and tight ends usually have more success against zone. So if the weather is kind of impacting the downfield passing game, I would like this even more. But I think this is a good potential blow up spot for Kittle. All right, who are you low on?
I'm low on Tucker Kraft. He's my tight end 8 right now. But as predicted, we were trying to figure out what the splits would be with Musgrave and Kraft this week, and it was pretty much dead on. Musgrave's playing time increased in his second game back from his injury at the expense of Kraft, obviously. But it was more of a 35-65 split. And I would not be shocked if it keeps trending towards more of a 50-50 split. So I don't think we've seen, Kraft's slip in playing time stop quite yet. And this is a tougher matchup against the Niners defense that does rank 4th in DVOA against tight ends. Plus, we've talked about the improved health of the Green Bay's wide receiver depth chart. Even just the emergence of a guy like Bo Melton could also just start chipping away at Kraft and Musgrave's target share in general. So Kraft is the guy that I've been riding, the past few weeks now. But right now, I think he's definitely on the downward angle. And, Musgrave could make it more of a 50-50 split as soon as this week.
Yeah, I have it trending. I still have Kraft about around 60-40-ish
same.
over Musgrave. But, Musgrave is trending up. And also, it was interesting because last week, and it was just such a small sample of pass attempts, designed pass plays, that it's tough to get a read because, Kraft actually played on 86% of the pass snaps, which is the same thing he was doing this whole time Musgrave was out, but a route at only 67%. So he blocked on, about a quarter of his snaps this time around in the passing game, where Musgrave didn't block at all. So that also kind of contributed to the split going down, but I do agree. I also, noticed that Kraft is a lot more involved on, early downs when the team is ahead, whereas Musgrave gets more of his targets when the team is, trailing. And I think, going into San Francisco as close to a double-digit underdog, that might favor Musgrave. Like if the team gets behind by 2 scores and they're just in hurry up throw mode, I think you'd see a little more Musgrave than you do Kraft. But you mentioned it; it's a tough matchup regardless. I mean, I always look out for tight ends, especially these young tight ends. Going up against Fred Warner and all those San Francisco linebackers, just really not a matchup I want parts of. I know it. Could have some success if you get into garbage time, if they're playing prevent or something like that. But Dre Greenlaw and Fred Warner, just not a matchup I want my tight ends going up against. And Burks has been good in coverage as well, Oren Burks. So, I mean, all 3 San Francisco linebackers, excellent in coverage. If they're in base, they probably won't be in base. But, Gibson is good if he has to guard him. They just have a lot of options to take away tight ends. So probably going to see a little more. I mean, their corners are good too. So maybe you see more dump offs to Aaron Jones. Who knows? But it's just a tough matchup for the tight ends. And it's hard. They're going to cannibalize each other. So I think at this point, Musgrave is trending up, Kraft trending down. Yep. So I agree with you on that one. I just mentioned, not really. I would be low on him if obviously Andrews plays, but Isaiah Likely, right now. But he's also most tight ends good against zone coverage, not as good against man. But Likely's so talented that he's actually averaging over 2 yards a route against man coverage this year, but just 1.3 against zone. So even if Andrews sits out, this not a great matchup for Likely. They're also favorites, so maybe they don't pass quite as much. I do think they'll come out with a pass heavy game plan, but just doesn't likely is not really. I would think anyway, going to be at the top of the target totem pole. I think you're going to look for Zay Flowers. I think Odell can have some advantages here. Bateman as well. So likely might be like the third or fourth option. And then if Andrews comes back, likely average only 17% route participation with Andrews healthy. I don't think Andrews would return to a full complement of snaps, as I mentioned, but it's kind of another Kraft Musgrave situation. You just really don't know. And that's, likely would be overpriced in DFS any way you look at it, because he's still being priced as a starter. So that's just something to monitor. But if Andrews is in, I still don't love Likely, because I think, if Andrews gets ruled out, then I think everybody, Likely's an option now. And, he'll probably be a little bit overly popular in the market. So probably fading Likely either way, but it's just wanted to kind of mention that with Andrews potentially returning. All right, what are you doing for the tight end prop?
Obviously, I'm going with a Mark Andrews prop. I think it's important just to talk through if he does suit up, kind of where we project him. He's one of the few players that doesn't have a market yet. So need help sharpening my projection. And, we mentioned a lot of times my prop guy ends up sitting out. This is why, because I'm usually throwing out an injured player. But I think you've been hinting that you're low on him. I might be lower. I don't know. So my projection as of now is 38.5 receiving yards. Are you going over or under that?
Let's see. That's a great line. I am a little bit under that. I'm more at like 37. So
yeah, 1 yard.
Yeah, it's nothing crazy. But I do think it'll be more of like a split snap situation, and because you have this large spread, that just creates more uncertainty as far as pass volume. I think for Baltimore, I think they're gonna come out pass heavy, but I mean, obviously I could be wrong. They've been a run heavy team for most of Lamar Jackson's career, but also they could come out pass heavy, get a lead, and then put Andrews in bubble wrap for the AFC Championship game. So just too many things, I think, floor wise, pointing to the floor, whereas not as much pointing to the ceiling. So I think he's more likely to hit his floor than ceiling in his first game back if he plays. So yeah, I'll go into that.
Yeah, and both of our projections will change if we get more news. We might get way more clarity on this than we have right now. So this is just a projection to monitor where both of our projection could go up or down quite a bit.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I might bump him maybe over 40 if he's definitely in, but I'm not really. I'm not going higher than I'm at 3 catches right now. I'm probably not going higher than 3.5 either way. I think that would kind of be the right line there. So maybe a 60-40, 60, something like that split with Isaiah Likely. All right. That is going to do it for our Divisional Week NFL Players Projections episode of the Action Network podcast presented by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. For more great fantasy content from Sean and I, be sure to check out our full fantasy preview episode out right now over on the Fantasy Flex podcast channel. And of course, if you're into betting, my weekly betting preview episode is out with Stucky as well. Best bets episode on this channel with Brandon Anderson out as well. You can visit actionnetwork.com for all of our NFL fantasy and betting content, as well as fantasylabs.com for our DFS tools and models. Don't forget to join the Action Network Discord server as well. Link will be in the episode description. You can find Sean on X at @_oddsmaker. I'm at Chris Raybon. We're at those same handles on the free award-winning Action Network app. Until conference championship round, let's get this money.